Hello and welcome to A Head Full of Dreams, the show that explores passion, purpose, pursuit and pain. To start the show, I just want to give a little bit of backstory as to how I came out with the show. So basically, I'm obsessed with a band called Coldplay. You might have heard of them. Only one of the biggest bands in the world. I became a proper fan of their music during my university experience because, guys, I just hated writing essays. I just did not like it, and so music would always get me through it, and a band would always get me through it as well, and one of those bands were Coldplay. And when I discover a band or discover a music artist, I always delve deeper into it and Google, find videos of them, and I came across this video.
John Buckland, Chris Martin, world champion and Guy Berryman, Aka the Coldplay are going to go on to be such a huge band. This will be on national television within 4 years. 4 years. It's now the 26th of June 1998. By the 26th of June 2002, the Coldplay, or the band, whatever they're called then, will be known just all over, man. We're going to be so big. Guy, Will, John and Chris. Don't you forget. Massive. Absolutely.
Basically came across this video of a young Chris Martin, him and the rest of the bandmates in the early days of their career, basically speaking his success into existence. And I think it was 4 years later, they played Glastonbury. What? And I just became captivated by this idea that you can speak your success into the future. And also alongside their Head Full of Dreams album that I would listen to, but I would only ever listen to the Beyonce one because that was just it's Beyonce. But then one day, the whole, all the songs on the track came up, and the title song, A Head Full of Dreams, came up, and I think it was just sort of an epiphany moment. I was like, wow, what a concept. Adrian from The Real always says, what a concept. And I was like, what a concept that you can have a head full of dreams. One of the things that I've been dealing with for a while now, for a couple of years, and more so this year, is OCD and anxiety and worry, and that stuff is just it's not nice to have, and it's or to experience, and it just dawned upon me. And then after hearing about that concept, A Head Full of Dreams, I think I Googled it, and it was just I found this phrase, a head full of dreams has no space for fear. And I remember just thinking bro, I can have a head full of dreams rather than a head full of nightmares, which is what this feels like sometimes, and conjure up ideas and dreams and just all of these positive things that could help me. And so that's how this concept of this for a show came about, because I would imagine, what if I interview Chris Martin about this idea? And yeah, so that's how the concept came about, and so that's how A Head Full of Dreams was born. So I want to explore this idea about what keeps you going and what makes successful people successful. Over the next few episodes, we are going to be exploring this concept even more, exploring what makes successful people successful, what keeps people going, and hopefully this could just serve as inspiration to me and inspiration to you. We're going to be talking about the ideas of passion and pain and purpose, and pursuing your purpose and not setting fire to your purpose, because bro, it can happen, and it's not about to happen, okay? 2020, it's taking too much from us, and we gotta stay, well, I'm American, we have to stay on track, and we have to continue to pursue what lights our hearts on fire, and to pursue our purpose and what we were put on this earth for. Selena Gomez has a lyric in her song Lose You to Love Me. She says, you set fire to my purpose and I let it burn. And when I heard that for the first time, I resonated with that line so much. Because it's just while she's talking about Justin Bieber and the experience that she went through, I can't relate in terms of relationships and stuff, but what I can relate is how I sometimes am my biggest so how I can relate is that sometimes I'm my biggest critic and just enemy, and through doing that, and through going, and when I experience, and when I don't want to say suffering, but essentially that's what it is. When I'm going through it, in terms of my worries and the OCD tendencies and the anxiety, that's just time wasted. And that's not to say we should go and get in the bag, It's not about that. It's just about just We all have a purpose and we all have things that we love to do, but me spending just like spinning, I'm literally setting fire to my purpose. Like, or the things that I haven't done because of X, Y, Z, or how because of this thing, or like the things that you know, the things that I want to do but can't do because of this thing. It just sets fire to your purpose, and sometimes your purpose can just be having a good time, and sometimes it just sets fire to it. So I'm just rambling. In this first episode, I am so delighted that I'm going to be talking to Mickey Duzyj from Netflix's Losers, one of the best things I've seen ever in my life. I am so excited to be talking to him about this idea of failure and how failure isn't necessarily mean it's the end. Failure can reroute you. So I'm so excited that we're going to be delving into that in this episode. And if you haven't seen Losers, I don't know what you're doing. But that's okay, because I'm going to put a little clip here. So if you haven't seen Losers and you're not sure what it's about, take a look.
That's not a good thing.
Going to get a piece of it. He may have it.
She was not expected to actually win the race.
It's all about winning. Winning, 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 winning.
Anybody who goes to a football match expecting to win is an idiot, I think.
Oh, my dear.
He's 100% in his career loser. He muttered to me, if you'll excuse my English, shit, I've lost it.
Losing is a habit. When you get that mindset, then you think you're never going to win a game again.
I said, that's it. I'm done with basketball.
I've said it to him many times. You're the biggest waste of talent I've ever seen.
I had never encountered that kind of darkness before, but I knew I had something to prove.
If you're fourth, it's like, what would have, could have, should have? That would probably haunt me. I'm sure it haunts her.
No, he missed it.
He was distraught. He was just saying, I'm never going to curl again.
Things happen for a reason, you know? And now, which part of yourself is going to come out? Who are you really? What are you made of?
If you're not going to be a good loser, you're not going to be a good winner either.
Many days you feel like crying, but winning is not the most important thing in life.
What's up, coach? Getting knocked out was the best thing that ever happened to me.
There have been more downs than ups. But in a way, that makes the ups feel all the better.
So Losers is such an inspirational show, and it definitely changed my viewpoint on failure and purpose. I'm so delighted to have spoken with the director, Mickey, about these topics of failure and purpose and passion and pain, and yeah, it was just such a good chat, and here's a look at our interview. Hi Mickey, nice to meet you.
Hey, great to meet you as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and I guess we'll jump straight into the interview. Let me get the questions up. So I guess, could you introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you're about, and your career so far?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Mickey Duzyj. I'm an artist and a filmmaker. I started out as an illustrator. I went to school to be an illustrator. And then after doing that for about 10 years, I started to do animation. Was invited to do some animated sequences for other directors' films, and enjoyed that so much and wanted to do storytelling that I had an opportunity to direct some short films that were really satisfying and fun and different for me. And most recently, I directed and produced a series for Netflix called Losers. All of my work, or most of my work, is in the world of sports. And the series is about athletes who have dealt with huge failure on the field, but who responded to their failures in admirable ways. So the stories that I'm always drawn to are ones that are about the individuals as human beings, the changes that they go through in their lives, how they find value in their lives. And that was the case for the series and my work prior to that.
And so, for those that don't know, it's an 8-part series. And I guess going through them one by one, why did you choose those specific subjects and why did you feel like their stories needed to be told?
So, I mean, going through them one by one, it might take a second, but I would say generally first, in the world of sports and in sports documentaries, there is a tendency to tell stories of athletes going through adversity and then overcoming that adversity on the way to winning a gold medal or a championship. That's a narrative that is told over and over, and that's kind of a Hollywood ending to a story. Um, for most of us, we don't really live our lives like kind of championship to championship. We have to deal with kind of disappointment in our lives, maybe um, dealing with what it feels like to have things not work out and have to kind of redefine success for ourselves. And what I wanted to know in the series that I made was to look at these athletes and teams who have dealt with huge failure and adversity in their lives. Some of these stories are 30 years old, and to go back to ask them how time has made them think about kind of that experience. Maybe it's changed how they feel about that experience, and also how they decided to live their lives after that. Did they become cynical? Did they become sad? Do they think of themselves as failures? And I think what we found across the board is that there were a lot of surprising changes in our subjects' lives. That the failure, rather than being just this weight that all of them carried around their necks as this heavy stone that made them ashamed, that actually created a new opportunity for them to find out a different part of themselves. Many of them found that kind of their empathy grew as they were slandered as a loser, kind of in public and in the media. They felt, oh, kind of the way that success and failure is defined in our society and in the sports world, there's something really messed up about that. And actually, as you see in the series, many of our subjects ended up working with other people, becoming altruistic. They worked with young people. They became more charitable. One of our a French golfer in our final episode, he becomes a UNICEF ambassador and ends up raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for kids in I think Madagascar, but also for UNICEF generally. And it was really, really surprising and inspiring to me to research these stories, to see the turns that these subjects kind of made in their own lives. And it was especially poignant to me because, as someone who consumes a lot of sports documentaries, these aren't the kinds of stories that often get told. And once someone is regarded as a quote unquote loser, and the series is called Losers because that word has followed our subjects around for their entire lives, professional lives and personal lives. Uh, I would argue in a really unfair way. Once they're seen as losers, they're really pushed off the stage. The cameras go away. So no cameras, no news crews are following these second acts that our subjects have in their lives. And I think, as you see in the series, uh, many of those second acts are more admirable and more inspiring than their athletic careers. And so I felt those stories were really important to tell.
It's crazy because before I saw this series, I never really thought about the idea of failure. I think that's something that in general, like, people want to avoid. And I'm glad you brought up the last episode, the one about golf, because after I saw that episode, I literally just came away from the series and I was just like, I'm not scared to fail anymore, because what is the point? Because ultimately failure can rewrote you. And that's something that I just took away from the series. And I hope other people will take away from the series.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think I mean at the end of that episode, one of Jean Van de Velde's closest friends talks about how in society we want to associate ourselves with success, right? When we were in Paris, we saw all these sculptures of winged victory and all of this is these are stories that we want to tell ourselves, associate ourselves with. But we grow so much more from our losses, from our failures, from things that don't work out, and oftentimes those are the greatest lessons, the pieces of wisdom that we can gain in our lives. So it's really about how you define success and failure in your life. That's important.
And sometimes success can be in that you find your purpose, like we saw in Jack in the, was it Jack the
Jack
basketball?
Ryan, yeah.
Jack Ryan and Michael Bent episode, like they found their purpose, and that's something that a lot of people are looking. And sometimes you just need to take an L and fail. Not that it should be, glorified. You just, in fact, you should seek failure because you just never know what might happen from it.
Well, I think, yeah, in the case of Michael Bent, the boxer, he achieved conventional success. He became the heavyweight champion. He's a boxer. He became champion for a brief moment before he lost the championship. But he was miserable when he achieved, quote unquote success, money and fame, because it wasn't really the person that he was meant to be. It wasn't satisfying something really intrinsic to who he was as a human being. And the same was the case for Jack Ryan, a basketball player who had all the talent in the world, but self-sabotaged to the point that he was just playing street ball and was kind of known as the best that never made it. Now he works with kids. He performs as part of this Harlem Wizards crew that he gives motivational messages to young people. He travels around the country. He says this destiny that he found for himself, even though it came through the experience of failing over and over to get into the pros and so forth, this was actually the most satisfying destiny for him that he could have ever imagined. So it's really counterculture to think that your path to finding who you are as an individual would come from so much failure. I think that's a big thing that motivated us who made the show as well, is to show that um, you know this is just this is a myth to say that our paths towards finding our place in the world is only to be paved through victory after victory, winning at the next job, and then gaining a million more social media followers, and then going, that's not really how it works for most people, and that should be some comfort to those of us who are not living those lives of an endless winning streak, so to speak.
Scroll down to my next question. And I guess essentially the stories and messages we were just talking about, obviously these are trying times for many reasons, but in particularly to the pandemic, how do you think how important is it for us to redefine success in 2020? Because a lot of people are saying 2020 is cancelled, they can't wait for next year, but in my opinion, nothing is going to change when the clock strikes 12 at midnight when it's 2021. So how would you encourage people that 2020 isn't over and you can still redefine success for yourself?
Well, like I was saying about kind of the trajectories of each of our subjects, I think that what they discovered in their lives is that something that's much more satisfying in terms of kind of how to live our lives, how to find value in our lives, is to connect with something that's larger than ourselves. And I think one of the things that we've seen in 2020 during the pandemic is that many of us are waking up to the idea that we're not just, individuals kind of disconnected from society at large, that there are larger societal issues, major issues, whether it's, how our healthcare workers are left out on a limb or exploited or underfunded, racial discrimination, gender discrimination. There are massive things that we need to solve collectively, and I hope one of the great kind of byproducts of all of this suffering and pain and anxiety from this year is that all of us, and especially those of us who are artists, who many times we can feel disconnected from society at large, or kind of the experience of making art kind of does isolate us in some ways, that we feel that we can be connected to something larger than ourselves as well, and kind of bring ideas out into the world that bring people in, that inspire people, rather than just defining success for our lives in terms of what we can achieve as individuals, which I think is kind of a dead end. For all of us this year, for us to only define success through what we can achieve in our own kind of jobs in our lives, it doesn't feel right, because there are much bigger things that are happening. So I think that's part of the solution, is to think about um, our missions in our lives as being more than just what we're trying to do individually, and realizing that there are so many people around us that are already trying to connect to issues that are bigger than ourselves, and that's important.
Wow, I never even thought about that before. That's such a good answer. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry, my questions are like all over the place, so I have to scroll down to get
Let's
the
do it.
next one. And I guess for you, what keeps you going through times of failure, and how have you applied the messages that you discovered through creating this documentary series? How have you applied that in your career?
Sure. There's so much. There's so much. First of all, I just want to say, like, the surreal experience of um, finding subjects that I personally admire so much, and then having the privilege to help tell their stories to a wider audience. That alone is amazing. But now so many of those people are a part of my life. I wouldn't say, I mean, some of them I would call friends, but we all keep in touch, which is a surreal part of being a documentary director with real people.
Mhm.
So, it was funny this summer. So we were nominated for a couple of Emmy Awards. We didn't
Yeah,
end up winning.
but congrats.
And thank you. It was still like such a thrill, even for the subjects, who largely were defined by failure in their lives, but they wanted this. It was a really 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 fun time, and we all got to connect on like a Zoom again, where all the subjects from different countries were on. It was really really the experience of making the show has been incredible. But after we lost the Emmys, I got messages from Surya, from Michael Bent, from Jack Ryan, consoling those of us on the team that wanted to win. And the whole thing felt very full circle, in that, we helped tell their stories of failure and redemption. And then coming around, they came back to console us after, we had our loss. Um, but to answer your question about how I apply it in my life, uh, because I consider myself primarily an artist, a visual artist, before being a director or a producer. Being a creative person is all about dealing with failure. That's like every single day. So there's no way to move forward as a creative person without coping with and learning to deal with failure. You're always trying new things, new combinations of things, and most of those things don't work. I should also say that our series was not renewed for a new season.
It's not.
So no,
I was expecting the second, third, fourth, fifth
I'm,
season.
I'm yeah, I'm sorry to say that there will be no more episodes of
We
Luther.
can't change that.
No, unfortunately not.
My heart's broken.
I'm sorry to say. Mine was a bit as well,
Yeah. What about
because
sorry, this is like off topic, but what about on like other like platforms, like I don't know, like Amazon or just other channels? Like can't if can they pick it up?
unfortunately, no. Netflix owns
Yeah,
the idea.
yeah.
Yeah, they could potentially ask us to do another series down the line, but at this point, that's not
Hopefully
happening.
this goes viral and then they'll change their mind.
Yeah, here's hoping. But I think that kind of and the reason why our show wasn't renewed had nothing to do with like whether the show was connected to an audience, got good numbers. They said all good things. It was just this thing they're trying to not do more anthology documentary series for a reason that their algorithm tells them. We are talking about new projects, but that's a perfect example of feeling like, oh, you know, of course, I wanted to continue with the series because not only did I feel like our show was about something more than just the work that we were putting into our show, spiritually and philosophically, I felt like there was something that was important about it. But I also wanted to give my crew jobs, tangibly, right? There were 100 people that worked on our first season, and like also many of those people are still very, very close to me. And when you have a project like that where everyone buys in and everyone felt really connected and felt driven, almost like on a mission to bring these stories out into the world with dignity and with beauty and with humor, that's something that's really hard to um, it's hard to say, well, this is over for the time being, and now we have to sell the next thing. And there is a kind of a dream or an impression that for someone that's made a series, that the next thing will just happen right away off the back of it. It hasn't really been the case. So it continues, just in terms of developing things, trying to sell them, trying to get them moving. And I think that if I wanted to look at the experience as like a failure, I could, but I try to just be super grateful that what happens happened in a way that all of us were artistically very, very satisfied with, and just have to keep the faith that the next thing is going to come down the line.
And I guess going back to the idea of purpose and meaning, even though you're saying how it wasn't renewed for a second season, but the impact that has had on so many people's lives, that is just a reward in itself. There are times when I'm going out for a shoot or something, and then the idea of Surya's story just comes to mind, and how even though the odds might be against you, you still have got to prove you're the greatest. So yeah, I feel like that's a reward in itself to know that the series has impacted people.
100%. And actually, I wouldn't be here today if you hadn't posted so beautifully about your impressions of the series. I have to say, I made the show, and all of us that made the show, the reason why we made it, aside from really trying to dignify the experience of our subjects, was to make it for normal people, for average viewers around the world, people like yourself. That was really, really motivating for us to try and make good medicine for the world, because all of us do feel like we have times of feeling lost or feeling like we failed. We feel kind of confused by life or by our path, and it's good to know examples of people who've admirably kind of dealt with those things. And for Surya specifically, I mean, like I said, when we were in Paris and we were looking around, and we saw the victory sculptures and everything. I just thought, Surya's been done so wrong. She deserves to, if anybody deserves to be a sculpture, it's her. And you would think, from all the French heroes that have been celebrated over the years, she's so original. She's just super tough, defiant, artistic, just larger than life. So to be able to share her story, I mean, it's insane that nobody had done had done it to start. That was also motivating, but to be able to share her story, and then to have someone like you, who obviously I've never met in person, but to connect with her story and have that mean what it does to your life, that's a real gift for those of us that made the show. So thank you for sharing that.
No, okay, honestly, it comes from the heart. The amount of people that I tell about her story, guys, you need to get on this. And the amount of people that I tell, guys, you need to watch Losers. It's the best thing ever. I'm still yet to tell my colleagues about it, but I will on Monday. Tell them that you need to watch the series. We're coming to the end of the questions. Time has gone so short. But then I guess going back to this whole idea of failure, I guess experience is the best teacher. But then are there any like other resources or literature that you might have read that explores this idea of failure and how it's not the end?
Well, I do think that there are a lot of conversations now about failure because our contemporary life is more complicated than I think things were maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Even looking at things just in terms of what we're going to all do for work, they're saying that many of us are going to have more career changes than people in the past did, where they had one job and they did that until retirement. So our lives are going to have many more ups and downs. All of us are going to have to deal with you know, quote unquote failures, things not working out, things ending and then new things beginning. And we're going to have to be very kind of facile in how we navigate our lives. So there is a lot that's out there. Kind of there are conferences dedicated to failure and so on. What I think is different about our show is that it shows that I hope that it destigmatizes things not working out, failures. Many of us in our personal lives know the experience of having a relationship that we really cared a lot about not work out. But then, through the process of kind of mourning that relationship, we actually find a relationship that's actually much better, and it maybe it was the one that we it's just much better, and it's a much healthier path for ourselves. We could look at that first relationship as a failure, but nobody really defines kind of relationships and breakups in those terms. So I think that all of us should kind of take the take it to heart that um, sometimes things not working out is the best thing that could happen to us, and that it's important to have an optimism in our lives, that even though there might seem to be a lot of chaos, uh, there might be sleepless nights where we feel confused or lost, that we're all in good company if we feel those things. Most people feel those things. But I mean, one thing that I think I talked to the subjects about, it didn't really sort of come through in I don't think anybody ever said this in the show, but something that I talked to the subjects about, and something that I think about in my own lives or my own life, is that character is destiny, much more than you know the jobs that we get, the jobs that we win, the money that we win, the following that we win. It's important who we are as individuals, the heart that we show in our lives, the generosity that we show, in moments when we're really lost. Those things will ground us and will reveal the right path. You have to believe that. Because if we don't do that, if we don't take an optimistic view, there are also examples all around us of people who've become very cynical, who decide, well, the world owes me. I'm going to become manipulative and angry, and those are very destructive impulses, and that's not going to lead you to a path that you're going to be proud of. That's not going to lead you to work that you're going to be proud of. That's not going to bring anyone in. That's actually going to push people away and isolate you. So when confronted with these moments of loss or failure or confusion, anxiety, um, we have a choice of how we respond to it, and I think the choice is clear.
Oh no, that was just so interesting to hear. I was gonna say, like, when those moments do happen, it's like we have two paths, either take one or the other. And sometimes when we take the other, good things and better things happen. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Coming up to my last question. So I guess for people that don't watch docuseries or even sports documentaries, I feel like for me, I'm not into sports, but for me to sit down and be obsessed with this show, I think that says something. There is something that you can connect with in this series. So, but for people that haven't heard of it or don't think that it's for them, what final message of encouragement would you say for them to watch the show?
Yeah, I think that the series was never really planned to be a sports documentary series. I think the important things, the things that we've been talking about today, the kind of emotional and philosophical underpinnings of what we're looking at, are universal. All of us have had the experience of things not working out. All of us have been confronted with that moment. That happens, in the middle of every one of our episodes, where our subjects have to take stock of their lives. They have to kind of look themselves in the mirror and ask, well, what is the rest of my life going to look like? How am I going to respond to the world looking at me like a failure? And I think that how those subjects reacted to those experiences were really, really surprising and inspiring. And I hope that for an average viewer who doesn't really care much about the sports side of things, you will notice, just in a very human way, how these individuals kind of pick themselves back up and kind of continue to move through the world with grace and dignity. And I think you'll be surprised what you find.
Definitely worth a watch. Well, that's the end of the interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a joy. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so much. And make sure you guys check out Losers on Netflix. You won't regret it. So thank you so much, Mickey, for that interview and, appearing on my show as the first guest. The conversation was just full of insight and just new ideas. And you're so right. Like, the amount of things, yes, the pandemic has taught us, that we can't necessarily achieve things in our own life, but we can go on to achieve something bigger and help other people and put our minds together and think how can we solve this thing, hopefully, and B, how we can help the community around us, not just our lives. Of course, we can reroute ourselves for this 2020 and reroute ourselves when we hit those failed moments, but we can also reroute ourselves in terms of our approach to our local and wider community. So yeah, definitely Losers is one to watch. If you haven't watched it, then just watch it. It's really good. I'm almost jealous because cause obviously I know the 8 episodes, I know the subjects, but then you're gonna watch it for the first time, and it's just such an interesting and just such a amazing feeling. So if you do watch it, please let us know, and let Mickey know. I'll leave his handle down below in the in the description section. And so yeah, that leaves us at the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed this first episode and more to come, hopefully. Not hopefully, yeah, there will be more to come. And yeah, let's continue to have a head full of dreams. And the whole idea of this episode is that even in your failed moments, you can still have a head full of dreams, dreaming for yourself and dreaming for how you can benefit the wider community. Amen. Yeah, so even in your failed moments, it's not the end, it's not over. You can reroute yourself, and what better time to start dreaming in your failed moments. And in this whole 2020, I can just encourage you, daydreaming can just go a long way. And these are dark times, these are the end times. It's not good, but who's to say you can't dream? You can't write down what you want to do after this thing blows over, or even what you want to do during, so you can find joy. I'm preaching to myself. I need to do that. I can't be here giving advice. I don't even take it myself, but we'll take it together and maybe we can go on a journey together. So if you felt inspired by this episode, leave a comment, and yeah, let's continue to have a head full of dreams. So that's been episode 1 of A Head Full of Dreams. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you liked it, let us know. Give this video a like and a comment and a heart on Instagram, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.